Last week, we talked about why it is so hard to part with things. And now we are ready to talk about the emotions that block you from decluttering. So what are the big emotions that block us from decluttering, and how can we work through them? For each emotion, I'm going to share what it may sound like, either in your head or what you may say out loud. And then I'm going to share some things that you can keep in mind as you declutter. So number one is guilt. What does guilt sound like? It was a gift. I spent a lot of money on this. It still works. I should probably use it. It is totally normal to feel guilty when decluttering. Every time you see these items and you think these thoughts to yourself, that's mental clutter, and you don't need that. Use your guilt to learn from, but don't subject yourself to that guilt over and over and over again. Remember that you will still remember the person who gifted it to you. The money is already spent, and if you haven't used it yet, will you ever use it? And if it burned in a house fire, would you miss it? Remember last week I talked about a house fire and all of my family's possessions were gone. If that happened to you, heaven forbid, would you miss this item? If not, you could probably pass it on. The second emotion is sadness or grief. And what does this emotion sound like? It was a gift from a loved one who passed away. This photo reminds me of a time that I want to return to. These emotions are not necessarily bad. One study showed that getting rid of objects leads to real grief. Parting with possessions that make you feel worthy can cause you to experience sadness and even depression. The same study asks, would you rather the grief you will experience when you declutter or the frustration that comes when looking at the clutter? You can work through the grief, but if you don't do something about the clutter, at some point you're going to reach your clutter threshold and you're going to have to deal with it. The third emotion is love and fondness. So what does this sound like? Oh, remember when we fill in the blank. Remember when you were so small and you're getting so big? Again, not a bad emotion, but it may lead to sadness and grief and other negative emotions. To work through this, have someone share in the stories as you go through your memorabilia and your keepsakes. Often, after you talk about the memory and share it with someone, you are able to pass it on. The fourth emotion is overwhelm. What does overwhelm sound like? I can't do it. I have too much stuff. This is one of the most common emotions when it comes to decluttering. So picture this. You're ready to tackle your space and you pull it all out, you pile it in the middle of the room, and then suddenly you take a step back and you look at all your stuff and you wonder, what have I done? What have I gotten myself into? This is overwhelm. You think, I can't do this. I have too much stuff. You feel so overwhelmed and you're not sure where to go from there. You're most likely feeling other emotions as well. Maybe you're trying to declutter your closet and you feel guilty for spending so much money on your clothes that you hardly ever wear, or clothes that don't fit you. Maybe you're going through your memorabilia and you're so overwhelmed and then something catches your eye and it's a letter from a loved one who's passed away. And suddenly you're not only dealing with overwhelm, but you're also dealing with sadness and grief. Starting with a small task and working with one thing at a time will help you overcome your overwhelm. So those are the first 4 emotions that we encounter when decluttering. Be sure to check back next week as we finish off with the last 3. I hope you enjoyed this video and thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Bye!